I want to bring in business reporter Alexis Christoforous in now for a little bit more on all of this. Alexis, what does this Social Security benefit bump mean for retirees?
Well, hopefully it's going to mean some much-needed relief for the nearly 70 million Social Security recipients. They've seen their budgets stretched thin because of high inflation. Also, their nest eggs have taken a real wallop because of the plunging stock and bond markets. So the average monthly Social Security check will rise by 8.7% next year, the biggest cost of living adjustment since 1981. That means people are going to see their Social Security checks go up by $146.
Folks, we got some good news about the fourth stimulus payments, and it's arriving this week. New deposit dates have already been confirmed for the fourth round of stimulus check as the holiday season arrives. Many lawmakers just want to help the low-income people. A group of Democrats and Republicans, for instance, have already proposed a plan that will provide monthly stimulus checks to the people. So, state-level stimulus is typically much smaller than a check sent out by the federal government during the crisis. And what this means, everybody, is that you can expect smaller checks and some limited money and some limited eligibility to receive the one-time stimulus check. During the crisis, people received stimulus checks from the federal government, but they weren't able to spend them as many businesses were closed and events like concerts weren't happening. As a result, people saved a lot more money. The latest round of stimulus checks, for instance, offered some financial relief to people that are feeling a pinch of inflation. State lawmakers across the country are working together to get a huge calm down of surpluses, which has given them the budgetary cushioning to send money back to taxpayers. And one potential use for the funds, though, with significantly less political reward, would be used for states and to use the funds to pay debt back or invest into pension funds for state workers. Some states like Illinois and New Jersey have struggled to provide adequate funding for the pension funds. A handful of states are still processing and sending out payments as well. And the Senate Republican Mitt Romney has introduced the Family Security Act. It would send payments of $350 per month to eligible families. Eligible families are people with 0 to 5 years old, and $250 per month is the stimulus money that you'll receive. The measure would also be expected for parents to apply for benefits that will begin 4 months prior to the child's due date. The maximum monthly payment would be $1,200. Romney said American families are facing greater financial strain, worsened by the crisis, and marriage and birth rates are at an all-time low. On top of that, we have not even comprehensively reformed our family support system in nearly 3 decades, and our changing economy has left millions of families behind. Well, this is what it means, everybody. Romney's plan calls for the benefit to be reduced by $50 for every $1,000 above income thresholds, $200,000 for single filers, and $400,000 for joint filers. It would also put work requirements in place for beneficiaries. Romney first introduced the bill last year, but it failed to gain momentum among lawmakers. It's been received as a really weird bill, and lawmakers continue to want to pass it in more relief for the low-income households. However, the bill calls for the elimination of state and local tax deductions, a savings of $25 billion a year. That eliminating the child portion of the Child Independent Care Credit would cut another $4.7 billion annually. And now, according to the National Retail Federation, despite inflation, consumers are planning to spend even more money, $830 on average on gifts and holiday items. The association reports a record 196 million Americans shopped in stores and online during the holiday season, so it's expected to increase again. A recent survey showed that 90% of U.S. adults said they are very or somewhat concerned about inflation. Almost 30% of U.S. adults are considering using a buy now, pay later service to cover large purchases by the holiday season. Consumers are the main drivers of the economy. People have to wait a little longer to see if inflation continues into next year. And according to some economists, it gives us a sense of whether or not the economy is going to continue to grow or worsen during the recession next year in 2023. It's something that many economists are debating about, and people are asking themselves, is the rising interest rates going to give us problems next year? Well, the problem is, yes, and this is the main problem. President Biden is not doing what he promised us in sending out stimulus payments. It's something he isn't doing. So, President Biden needs to do it now.
Thank you all for being here, and I apologize for my back when I'm speaking to you. My mother gave me hell for doing that. But Ken, thank you for the introduction and for representing your brothers and sisters in organized labor, and who always get the job done. While they can't be here today, I want to thank Leader Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, Senators Brown, Patty Murray, Ron Wyden for their leadership in this issue as well. And I want to thank all the members that are here. Richie, it's good to see you, pal, and who leads the powerful House and Ways and Means Committee and saw this legislation and to the end and saw it through, and Tammy Baldwin, He's mildly prejudiced about your position and from that state you represent. Tina Smith, Representative Bobby Scott, Marcy Kaptur, a great friend, and Frank Marvan. Thank you all for being here. And a special thanks to Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, Teamster General President Sean O'Brien, AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler, for believing what I believe, that the middle class built America and unions built the middle class. We all know in recent years the middle class has been hit pretty hard. Unions have been under attack. We've had an economy that didn't feel like it worked enough for working people. A pandemic made things a lot worse, and that's when I signed the American Rescue Plan to provide economic relief for folks who needed it and needed it the most, keeping tens of thousands of cops and firefighters, teachers, first responders on the job as state revenues dried up during the pandemic in all 50 states. And through the American Rescue Plan, we laid the foundation for an economy built from the bottom up and the middle out. I'm press is tired of hearing me say this, but you know, when the poor have a ladder up and the middle class are able to prosper, the wealthy do very well. Everybody benefits. Trickling down doesn't usually get down to the bottom. One of the big ways we did that was to...
Now, here's some big news in Congress. The Senate just announced and advanced a short-term government funding bill after Manchin considered a defeat on his push to combine the funding with his energy permitting package. This funding bill would also keep the government running through December 16th, easily earning the 60 votes necessary to clear a procedural hurdle during a vote. 72 senators supported moving forward the proposal, and for several weeks, Chuck Schumer has been carefully balancing his promise to Manchin to include Manchin's permitting change proposal on a must-pass bill before the fiscal year ends on September 30th. Despite a growing coalition of members on both aisles vowing to block any short-term funding bill that includes Manchin changes. So Schumer gave assurances to Manchin that in order to secure the West Virginia senators' support, the major political spending and tax bill this summer is the Inflation Reduction Act. In a statement just half an hour before the Senate was set to vote on this bill, Manchin announced that he had requested Schumer to remove language from the bill. Schumer said, Senate Republicans have made clear that they will block legislation to fund the government if it includes bipartisan permitting reform because they've chosen to obstruct instead of work in a bipartisan way to achieve something they've long claimed they wanted to do. Republicans were largely united in their intention to attack and block a funding bill that included Manchin's permitting language. But Republicans were not the only ones working to block the bill when it included Manchin's language. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders had vowed to vote against it too, citing concerns about the adverse environmental impact that speeding up permitting projects for non-renewable energies could have. And also, since the California plans to begin issuing the middle-class tax refund directly to residents and bank accounts, the franchise tax board said that the first batch of payments